welcome to the Raw Food Health Empowerment Podcast, the live recording. Say hi in the chat. We're going to get started in just a minute. Thanks for joining us live. Awesome. I am so excited to have this conversation today. I am with the wonderful, amazing Vasanto Melina, registered dietitian, author of Becoming Raw and Plant-Powered Protein. These are two books we've been talking about a lot in my community. So I'm going to dive into her bio, but first, I'm your host, Samantha Salmon, certified integrative nutrition coach and brain health licensed trainer. This is the live recording of the Raw Food Health Empowerment Podcast, where we talk about all things high raw diet and health and wellness. And today we're talking with Vasanto specifically about fiber, about protein, about high raw. We're going to get into some interesting things she had to share with me before we went on today. Vasanto is a consultant for individuals as well as the government of British Columbia. She is the lead author of the last position paper on vegetarian diets for the Academy of Nutrition and Dietetics. Also, Vasanto received the prestigious Riley Jeffs Memorial Award from Dietitians of Canada. She resides in Vancouver, Canada with her partner Cam. Her website is nutrispeak.com. She also has a website called plant-poweredprotein.com. And I'm going to drop these links in the chat, and also her link for if you want to book a consultation with her. She is just a wealth of knowledge. And Vasanto, thank you so much for joining us. I'm so excited.
Thank you so much from the other corner of North America. Yeah.
Yes. Yes. So I would love to start with something you shared with me today, that you and your writing partner, Brenda Davis, who's also a registered dietitian, came to the conclusion that it's better for most people to have 75% raw rather than 100% raw in order to meet the recommended intakes for protein and some minerals. I would love for you to kind of elaborate on this. We actually just did an episode on what the difference is between raw and high raw. And the way I was taught about what makes one high raw, back in 2008 when I started this journey, was based on calories. If the majority of your calories are coming from raw foods, that means you are high raw. So I would love to understand, because I feel like your book, Becoming Raw, positioned it a little bit differently. So if you could kind of, from your perspective, share how you define high raw and elaborate more on this concept that it's best for people to be 75%.
Oh, thank you very much. And so when we started on this book, I actually wrote this raw food revolution diet. And my publisher wanted me to write it, and Brenda. And we said, we don't know about raw. Like, this was quite a while ago. And he said, well, who better to do it than you, because you'll figure out all the science behind it. So the person in this book, and I'm actually just going to go to Costa Rica and meet with her, had a raw chef school in Fort Bragg, California, not the Fort Bragg on your side of the America, but the Fort Bragg on the other side. So this was a really popular school. People came from all over the world, and Sherry on the cover was close to 70. And really fit, just gorgeous shape. Now she's 76 and still doing ultra marathons.
Wow.
It's pretty impressive. Yeah, but that she had never turned her oven on. And she'd lived in that house for quite a while. So anyway, but she'd eat these huge salads, like practically a wheelbarrow coming in, and we realized when we started working out the details that it was quite challenging to get the protein and iron up high enough. Like I in so we did a follow-up book with all the myths and details and stuff, becoming raw, and all the places where you've got some science that you're not quite sure what's right. Um, but and I've got menus in that, 5 of them, that are quite high raw, but no, they're 100% raw, the menus. But boy, I had to work so hard to get the protein up to the recommended. And have you got a picture of one of those raw ones? A high fruit diet, like a 2,000 calorie. And what I realized is you just had
Okay.
to pick very carefully. Like you couldn't just have cantaloupe and that kind of fruit. You had to have fruits that had berries in them, or seeds in them. Like berries have seeds, just because there's a little bit more protein there. Or else you'd get the nuts and seeds so high that, there was really a lot of fat. Anyway, I really had to struggle, and over time, I realized that it was probably better to go high raw and have some cooked items, and probably, preferably, some legumes, some beans, peas, lentils, that
Mm.
would give the protein, the iron, and just make sure you had your muscle strength. Because I found a lot of people were going 100% raw, and they would feel great and they'd lose weight. But after 3 or 4 months, some of that wouldn't be quite as powerful. And that's because their protein reserves and protein in all the different organs in the body, and your bone structures, basically protein with minerals stuck into it. And so anyway, I thought 75% raw. And whether it's by weight or by amount or whatever, doesn't matter that much. It's kind of, it's vague. I mean, even people going 50% raw compared to where they were can be a huge advantage. So and I, of course, went more raw doing it. Like I was like, hey, this is great. This is good stuff. So I'm probably 75% raw. um, that would be by calories, but it could be by weight. In the summers, and then in the winters when it's colder, I'm a little bit less than that sometimes. But I still have a smoothie in the morning that's 100% raw, lots of kale in it, and then have salads at half my plate or more at lunch and supper every single day. And some of these things, like the Esselsteins that are talking about reversing chronic disease, they're saying greens 6 times a day. Like, that's a lot, but that's for reversing chronic disease. So, anyway, it's been a very interesting journey for me to find out, the different understandings that there
Yeah,
are.
so right now we're looking at the 2,000 calorie per day menu that you were referencing.
Yeah.
The other one with 1975. Do you want to say something
Yeah.
about this
That
one?
um I don't see which one you've got up, but
So yeah, you can't see it on your end, but I'm displaying it here. It was the image that you said was 1,975
oh,
calories.
yeah, so that was a high fruitarian, and that was like where I really had to work. So it's got lots of fruit, and these ones are.
Oh, Vasanto, looks like you muted yourself. It looks like you're on mute.
No? Oh,
Yep, there you go. There you go. We can hear you now.
so this book has all these little menus. So it's got like 2 cups of fruit in the morning, plus some romaine lettuce. And then it's got a fruit salad at lunch. So this was fruitarian. And then it's got 4 cups of romaine lettuce. Yes, it's got 3 cups of Napa cabbage, 2 cups of kale. And kale, if you have it, you slice this stem out and then cut it matchstick thin, or it'll taste like you're eating, rubber leaves or something. I think. Yeah.
Ah.
And then it'll have some raw veggies and some liquid gold dressing. And then all the snacks contributed. like currants or figs, and then some seeds and some nuts, an assortment, and then some more fruit. So it's quite a lot of food to eat for some people, and that was 2,000 calories.
Yeah, so
Then
can you explain to me too the 2000 calorie thing, because like I
yeah,
um
you don't eat that much, right?
yeah, I don't eat that much. So I'm
No,
just
I
I'm trying
know,
to
but that's
understand.
what that's the standard on menus. So I was going, hey folks, if you want to go 100% raw, you got to eat a lot. And the people that I've seen getting the protein up high enough are people like Doug Graham, who's actually a lot of recipes I don't admire that much, or his ideas of eating. They'll be like 14 bananas for lunch, you
Yeah.
know, but he runs a lot. His caloric
Oh, I don't know why you muted Vasanto. Sorry. 1 second. Okay. You said he runs a lot, and that's where the last thing we heard.
so his calories are like 3,500 a day. And
Mm.
then he gets the protein up high enough. Like it
Mm.
just doesn't work for most people. You're going to work, you've got, maybe you can fit in an hour, half an hour of fitness a day, but you're not going to burn that many calories. So that's why I found, and this is for myself too, I'm more around 1,600 calories. But if I have my great big salad, and I love it, and then it's got a lemon tahini dressing or some dressing. Don't waste calories on oil or sugar, but that, like, tahini will deliver calcium, it'll deliver protein, and then the other part is some kind of bean salad or some tofu that's marinated and put in the air fryer or something like that to give the protein. So I found that that kind of a balance really works, in on the plate. Yeah. And
Yeah.
then the other menu that you've got isn't a fruitarian, but it's got a lot more vegetables in it. And again, the protein came up to about, I forget, it's 57 grams or something.
The 2000 one, I'm going to put that back on the screen. That was this one here with 60 grams of protein, 78 grams of fiber, you said. And this is on, for folks who have the book Becoming Raw, it's on page 248, menu number 5. So you could take a look at that. I mean, it looks delicious. Oh, I got this little
Yeah,
flag
it is.
here.
They're good. But I was just impressed as I was doing this. Hey, you got it. And I found, it was just made things a lot simpler to add some legumes, some beans, peas, lentils. And people don't always know how to do that, or they had some awful recipe their mom made when they were a kid and they thought, oh, I don't want to eat that stuff. But there's actually 20 kinds of legumes, of beans, peas, lentils, and you can think of how many different ones. There's different chickpeas. Can you think of some? What your
I heard of black chickpeas before, like recently, and I had
Wow,
never seen it before. And I'm like, black chickpeas.
you're
But
right.
wow.
Yeah. So
So
there's
much
all
food
these
out
even
there.
the cousins of all the ones that are familiar, pinto beans, white beans, navy beans, kidney beans, aduki beans in Japan. They're all different parts of the world. The Hispanic cultures have a lot of beans used in different ways. So it's good to just find some fun recipes, or at restaurants that you go to, and if they've got a salad bar, something that tastes good that way, to add that in.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, this is really brilliant, like having all these menus already done so you don't have to think about it. It's perfect. I do want to ask you about something you mentioned, and it must have been the protein book where you mentioned leucine. So for
Yeah.
folks like on a whole vegan diet or a high raw vegan diet, right? You mentioned a recommended amount of 700 milligrams of leucine per meal. How exactly are folks supposed to get this?
Well, I had to work that out too. I have fun with I've got a very good nutritional analysis program, ESHA food processor, and when I have clients, like we work out exactly what they're getting in their typical menu. So I don't intend these menus that somebody'd follow them exactly. They just give you an idea of what it would look like, and then you vary it and all that stuff. But that with the protein, what I got interested in is that some people are wanting to add muscle mass. We have two categories, particularly athletes that are actually
Mm-hmm.
wanting to gain muscle. And if they go to the health food store, there's all these packages of whey all over the place, which is, the byproduct, it was a waste product from dairy foods. And then they figured out they could package it for muscle building. But soy turns out to have as good muscle building capacity. That's just because they've done some studies. Now, the legumes are all pretty good at that. Um, and the other group of people who need that kind of stuff is seniors. So I'm actually 81 myself, and I
Wow.
want to, yeah.
I'm floored. Seriously, I would have never. Oh my goodness.
So, yeah.
Wow.
So I wanted to make sure I keep my strong muscles. My actual plan is to become 118, and I want a lot of old, healthy vegans around. So we're like
Yes.
good examples to show people, hey, you don't have to live your last decade with chronic disease and in a lot of pain.
Oh, Vasanto, you muted again. I don't know if you're pressing something on your end, but it just it muted
Sorry,
you.
am I back?
Yeah, you're back.
Isn't that funny?
Yeah.
Um, okay. Um, anyway, when we get older, we would naturally have a little bit less absorption of protein. And so we want to boost it maybe by about 20-25%. And we do rely again on the legumes, the beans, peas, lentils, and
Hmm.
soy foods for that. Or it could be. I mean, you could make it work without those. And if people have allergies or they want to be 100% raw, you can sprout lentils. You can only sprout the little guys like the lentils or the what else? Aduki beans, maybe mung beans, but nothing bigger than that, or that you get really awful digestive stuff happening. So anyway,
Mm.
but when you sprout them, you've got this little pile of lentils, and then it gets to this much lentil sprouts. So you can't eat that many of those anyway. Yeah. Um, so the amino acid that's helpful, and it's a high component of muscle, is leucine, and that's in these foods. So that's why, though I'm a big supporter of raw, and certainly I've worked with brilliant people, really fit people on 100% raw, I found that this other option works well for a lot of people to add, yeah, the
To add it
legumes.
in. Okay, so basically high raw is best.
Yeah, I
Right?
think of it best. Yeah.
High raw is best, and then you get the legumes in to get the leucine, and you'll reach the 700 milligrams by.
Yeah, just having, a pretty hefty serving of that. Like you could have half a cup of tofu. And that's a funny one. I think I sent a picture. Did I? I don't know. Anyway, you just marinate your tofu in something you like. Like I use low sodium tamari and a bit of rice vinegar, tiny bit of sesame oil, ginger and garlic.
Oh, Vasanto, you got muted again. You're still muted. Do you see it on your
Huh.
end? Oh, there you are. I can hear you now.
Doesn't show any change with mute. Okay.
Oh, wow.
So the where I lost what I was talking about.
You were talking about
Oh, the list.
tofu and soy, and half a cup of tofu
Yeah,
would
tofu.
get you there.
Yeah, you could have that, or you could have like a bean salad. Goes well with. then all your rest is raw. Just something like that. Have that
Mm-hmm.
at probably at something at lunch and something at supper, and that really keeps your protein up high enough. Now, some people are okay with way less of that, but that hits the recommended intakes.
Okay, cool. So you mentioned fiber, so I'm going to segue into why should we
Good.
care about soluble versus insoluble fiber? Is this just extra words to know, or is that something we should be mindful of for our
Oh
diet?
yeah, yeah. So with our ancestors, people are on paleo diets, and most of them are pretty pretty bad. Like our ancestors ate at least 70, maybe 120 grams of fiber a day. A
Mm.
lot. That meant they ate a lot of plant foods. And those are really different. That the true paleo diets were like that, very high plant foods, especially for the first 80% of the paleo period. And then um, we we usually in vegan diets we get maybe 70 grams of fiber, and I wrote that for those two menus. And that's a very healthy amount. Most North Americans are like less than 20 grams of fiber a
Wow.
day, and the recommended is around 25. Kind of depends for men and women, it's a bit different, but it's in that range. So we're getting almost triple the minimum recommended. And it seems to be really good for us. And there's two types. There's the soluble fiber, which is like pectins and gums, and they help us level out our blood glucose. And boy, that is important for me. And it's in beans as well. Like I came from a family with lots of addictions, alcoholism, and then in my generation, people smoked dope a lot. And the it's really hard to level out your, and I learned that could be even a hereditary thing. Like your
It says you muted.
this
I'm
is
not sure
happening.
why it's happening. I'm not sure why.
Am I back on?
Yeah, yeah.
Huh. I'm gonna move this a bit. My little microphone. Um, because it doesn't do it. I've got no light changes or anything here.
Hmm.
Okay. Um, so the soluble fiber is helpful, especially about blood glucose. So I'm finding like I need those things like beans and so on at meal.
Yeah, Vasanto. Okay, can you talk now?
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. Then there's the other type of fiber, which is the insoluble fiber, which is like the rotor rooter of your GI tract. It just carries stuff out, carries out these toxins and unfortunate compounds that you don't want to have in there. And so that's very helpful as well. And we get more than half of our fiber is the insoluble kind, but there's hefty amounts of different ones. And then there's also oligosaccharides, which act as prebiotics and just
Hmm. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's so strange. The only thing I could think of why you keep getting muted, because we talked for so long before we started,
are we
and it's
running out of
going.
steam?
When it turned back on, you didn't touch anything just now, right?
I just touched my mouse right now, but I didn't.
Okay.
The other times I didn't touch anything.
Yeah, because the only thing I could think of is the hand gestures. Since there's
Oh
been like a Apple, you have an Apple MacBook or Apple computer?
no, I've got a PC
Oh,
and
okay.
I've
Then
got a
yeah, I have no
Bluetooth
idea.
microphone. Blue,
That's so weird.
isn't it weird?
Sorry about that. Yeah, that's so weird. I've never had that happen before. I've never seen that before, so I have no clue. But thank you
Okay.
for explaining that. So yeah, so they're both really super important, and it's interesting you mentioned too the I can never pronounce that word, the oligosaccharide.
Oligosaccharides.
Yes.
Oligo means many, but it's like it's got 3 to 9. glucoses stuck together. All it
Mm-hmm.
goes
This
is knitting.
is one of the FODMAPs, and we had like a couple of episodes on dealing with bloating and gas.
Oh yeah,
So it's like
yeah.
that prebiotic fiber you're mentioning is really so helpful, but yet it's causing people so much distress when they're, trying to get into this plant way of eating.
Well, you know what I just found? Well, my partner Cam's daughter just went. She was trying to get more healthy, plant-based. So she started getting really uncomfortable gastric stuff. And what I think happened,
Oh, it muted you again. It says you have muted yourself. That's what it's saying on my end.
wow, I'm gonna not move my arms. And
Yeah, let's
hopefully,
try it, see what happens.
okay. So, so anyway, it really made me realize how we have to let people go at a gradual pace. Like,
Mm,
don't bring in the whole wheelbarrow full of salad, in your first week. It's just
yeah.
gradual, gradual. And the same with the legumes, the beans, peas, lentils. Like I might say, have half a cup of this or cup of that.
Do you see it? Oh, yeah. It says guess, yeah. And now it's back.
Wow.
I
Well, all of
know.
you
That is so
audience,
strange.
maybe some of
That's
the
so
audience will
strange.
know stuff about this. Anyway,
Yeah.
yeah, we had one thing about international solutions to the gas crisis. And the ideas were, hey, you start gradually and you use the little guys like cooked lentils, red lentils especially, very easily cooked. And you don't start with kidney beans. Sometimes even kidney beans right out of a can are slightly undercooked and people can have trouble digesting them. So
Wow.
you don't go there. And just be gradual. And it's good for people to respect their own process, individual process.
So, huge question I have. Is there more fiber in raw foods versus cooked foods?
Okay, well, we don't have really exact figures on this, but there's two places. Raw foods can definitely have more fiber. When you cook it, some of the indigestible, like insoluble fiber, becomes more digestible. And so there's a change that way. And also, when you cook, you lose stuff into the cooking water. So you can lose fiber, you can lose sugars in, tasty plant sugars, and you can lose minerals and vitamins. So you definitely can lose some fiber. And we're not actually sure of the amounts because, it depends how much research has been looked at, but you definitely have more fiber in the raw foods. But
Is that
it,
something we could visibly see with the eye, fiber? Or is that
um,
measured differently?
no, it's little molecules that are really, really small, like strings of glucose. And the things that you might think of as being fibery are probably these little tubes that go up like a celery stalk or the stalk of a spinach leaf that carry fluids up to the leafy part.
Oh, you're muted. Oh, you're back. You're
I wonder
back.
if,
Maybe it's an
yeah,
internet connectivity thing.
yeah, I haven't had that go either.
Yeah,
Okay.
that's weird. That's weird.
um, so the fibers that you kind of see sometimes in plant foods, little stringy pieces, they're made of fiber molecules, but that's not what we count as fiber. It's not like
I
the
see.
fibers in clothing.
Got it, got it, got it. Okay, so that's good to know because I always talk about, when people ask me, like, one of the benefits that I love about raw foods, I always talk about spinach, for example. When you get a whole pound of spinach, it's a lot of fiber, it's a lot of food. you eat that, you get full. But if you cook spinach down, it like could fit in the palm of your hand, and you don't get full off of that. But if you can't visibly see fiber with the eye, there has to be something more to that conversation. Why all of this? Because that, when it's raw, it does provide bulk, but
Bulk.
we're chewing
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
So I'm not really sure what's happening on the inside, why it's different. Because clearly we're having the experience of it being different.
Yeah, we are.
But
Yeah.
what
That's
is that?
interesting. Okay. Well, I'm as just trying figuring it out like you right now. Yeah, because I'm.
Mm. Oh, it muted you. It's gonna come back. Sorry, folks. We're having some technical issues. Okay, yeah, all right. So you said you're trying to figure it out, and then you were going into something.
Yeah. Well, when I try and pack my spinach gardens, I've got roof gardens and a lot of spinach growing, and when I want to pack it down, like squish it, I can squish it into a pretty small ball. You know,
Mm-hmm.
so there's physical when you chew it gets smaller, 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 um, and that's not a physical change in losing fiber. So you can stuff in a lot more food when it's cooked, so the
Mm-hmm.
calories end up quite different. Does that make sense what I'm saying?
Um.
It's
Yeah.
not quite what you were addressing.
Yeah. 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 So I mean, it's something to still think about. Because the same thing with goes for like any other green, kale or anything else. Like when you blanch it, it's not as filling to the stomach for some
That's
reason.
right. Yeah. Yeah, it doesn't have the big stomach filling. Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's right. And most of those foods that we're talking about are over 90% water.
Hmm. So maybe it's because it's losing water. Is that
It
what
could
we're
be, it
losing?
could be, because you're breaking some cells and some of the water gets out and that kind of thing. Yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense. Because we're eating our water. That makes total sense. So, all right. So I know we're having some tech issues. I want to make sure I get to the really, really juicy questions. Okay, everyone will be upset with me if I don't ask you this question. Women in their 60s, is there a special diet for them based on their age? How can they maintain health in the best way with their nutrition? And you have an amazing picture with your writing partner, Brenda, here that I'm going to show folks, where Brenda is doing a handstand. And how old did you say Brenda was?
He's 64.
64. And you're doing the plank in the middle.
I'm doing the 2-minute plank, which
Yes,
I
which is
do.
amazing.
Yeah. And
Oh, it dipped out. It dipped out. I'm gonna need you to repeat because your volume went. Can you repeat what you just said? Oh, it's muted now.
wow.
All right.
No?
It's working now, yeah.
Okay. Um,
Or you know what we could try, Vasanto? Maybe if you unplug your mic,
that's
it
what
may
I was
be,
wondering.
yeah, it
Yeah.
may be going in and out because of the mic. All right, so now unmute yourself.
No?
Okay, all right, so let's try this, yeah.
Okay. So when we get older, we need fewer calories, but we need the same amount of most nutrients, like vitamins and minerals and essential fats. We need the same amount, and yet we need fewer calories because our metabolism changes a bit. So, and then some things we need more of. We actually need about 25% more protein. Even though we've got the same calories, we need more calcium, up from 1,000 to 1,200 milligrams. We need more vitamin D and B12. So you've got to really get more bang for your buck. Like your food choices have to deliver a lot. Um, so that's what, we've been really working on that. And I'm wanting many, many people to be terrific examples to their friends and relations, and, just to show this works. It's good for the planet, with the effects on climate change. It's good for your health. It'll lower your risk of chronic disease. You won't have all these, tragic later years where you're in pain. And so we want to combine this. And in our different books, we've got, like in the plant powered protein, we've got a section on what it is for seniors and what it is at different ages. If you've got little kids, if you're going through pregnancy, just to be very specific about that. And by the way, nutrition's a really new science. We've identified the first vitamin in 1914, vitamin A. A to start things off. And then we got B, and then we found B was a mix of different vitamins, 7 different ones. And so it's really something which we're evolving. We're trying to figure out exactly how much B12 and how much vitamin D. And we do a best guess, but scientists are just honing in on that. And those of us that are doing this kind of work talk to each other, like we were talking to Michael Greger about how much should we be recommending for seniors? How much more protein? And they've got quite high recommendations in some parts of Scandinavia, and in North America we've got no change in the recommendations. So probably right in the middle is better. Those of us that are looking at plant-based are really scouring the research. We think, 20% more protein is 25% more is a good idea.
That's good to know. So I will repeat for folks in the back. If you are 60 plus and you consider yourself a senior, you need to get even more protein, right, than what you were getting before. Your protein needs are more, even though your calorie is less, which means that on your plate, the protein is taking up a higher percentage of your plate, right?
Yeah. And it's still only like a quarter of the plate. You've got your great big salad and all these raw veggies and a good nourishing dressing and that kind of thing. Yeah. And that'll also deliver iron that keeps your hemoglobin at a good level, and zinc. And by the way, when people go to their doctor, they want to have a good hemoglobin level, but they don't really need a high serum ferritin. We're finding that ferritin's like the iron that's sitting on the shelf waiting in case you ever need it, and it's a pro-oxidant. So we're finding that having, as long as you've got energy and your hemoglobin's up, you don't need high ferritin. So it's a bit down, because I find a lot of vegetarians are low on that side, and then what the research has shown, that may be an advantage to have slightly low serum ferritin. If the iron hemoglobin's up enough, the working iron, it can lower your risk of type 2 diabetes, of heart disease, and maybe of cancers.
Yeah, yeah. I heard of a woman who mentioned that she was going through hair loss because
Yeah.
of low ferritin levels, or she was making that connection that low ferritin levels was possibly causing that for her. So that's really interesting to hear you say that.
But yeah, hair is not made of iron, it's made of protein. And, there's different things involved. So we do need the protein, but we don't need, particularly high levels of iron. But you get it in beans, legumes, lentils, that kind of stuff.
Okay, great, great, great. So, what's your view on starches and eating them cooked versus raw? This is something that came up in the summit that we just did. There's differing opinions on this. What say you about it?
Oh, I love raw corn on the cob. That sweet corn? Oh,
Yeah,
that's so good. And it's so simple. You don't put it in a pot of boiling water and pour butter all over it. You just have
yeah.
it. peel off the leaves. So that was a very good one. And people are using sweet potatoes, and this can be a bit tough to chew, but if you grate them or have little slivers of them or use juicing, they deliver a lot of vitamin A. Of They can help you balance your blood glucose, and they have soluble fiber in them, and they're anti-inflammatory. They have vitamins A and C. Vitamin A is carotenoids, so things that are orange. Yeah, so that's a good choice. You wouldn't be eating raw potatoes, though. These are sweet potatoes. Yeah.
Right. So you're okay. You don't think that the starches, like, first of all, there's like the first thing where I feel like my mom, for example, she was born in 1952, and I feel like probably somewhere in the 70s and 80s there was like an anti-starch movement. I'm guessing because she was very concerned about starch, right? And so I'm like, but there are all these healthy plant foods that they're starches. So there's that. But then also having them raw versus cooked. So you're saying having them raw is completely fine, but something special about the white potato, it's not going to do anything. Should we be concerned about like how much starch we're consuming, or just throw the whole concern out the door?
Oh, well, there's two things here. I was only seeing a couple of starchy foods to
Okay.
eat raw. So if we're talking raw, there's a few, and some of them you wouldn't want. Like potatoes. They have alanine. They can um, be related to things like arthritis, and you don't want raw potatoes. That's for sure. But then if we're talking about starches, are they good or bad? Well, most the starches and the sugar that people are eating is very refined. So starch got a bad name quite understandably, because people were eating all this refined flour, refined wheat, refined rice even, and the outer layer's been taken off, a lot of the fiber's gone, much of the vitamins, some of the protective phytochemicals. So we're saying if you eat starches, make sure they're from whole grains, from legumes. I mean, all of the plant foods have these long chains of glucose, and our brain is fueled on glucose. So, but that doesn't mean we want to eat a whole load of sugar. The starches deliver it in a very gradual way when they're from a whole plant food.
So that makes sense. So then it's totally fine to have sprouted rice, even like the sprouted beans you were talking about before. It's interesting you mentioned
The little
the
beans,
the
the
little beans.
little,
So like
the
sprouted
lentils.
garbanzo.
No, and we actually put one sprouted garbanzo recipe in our raw food revolution diet. And after, I thought we shouldn't have done that, because the oligosaccharides, well, there's a little bit of too much of that, and lectins that are left, and they can give
Mm,
gas problems. So I wouldn't do that now. I'd cook them a bit and then make them into hummus or something. Yeah. But the little ones that are like a lentil, or that size, and mung beans. Mung beans are what go into mung bean sprouts, or we call bean sprouts. Those are great. They're good.
So you mentioned in the book Becoming Raw the state of a person's gastric acidity and the speed of gastric emptying. You have like this section, and it really spoke to me. this idea of the gastric acidity, because folks have mentioned too, like, I'm trying to eat raw, I'm trying to do 100% raw, but I'm getting this burning in my stomach. I'm getting acid reflux, which is surprising to me because raw foods has helped me mitigate acid reflux symptoms. But for some
Yeah.
people, it seems to be causing acid reflux symptoms. So I wanted to ask you about this and like, why is the emptying so painful? Because I know this, for me, when I read that part about gastric emptying, it reminds me of the hangry, when you get so hungry, the stomach is full of like it's filling of gas, and it hurts so bad, that hunger pain. um so yeah, if you could just talk to us about that.
Okay. So there's actually a couple of things here. There's different places that can hurt. Like with the reflux, people's sphincter that's around the between the where the throat ends and it goes into the or the esophagus and goes into the stomach. There's supposed to be a sphincter that's really tight there, and with age that can get loosened, and so that's a one issue. It's a separate one, and then our stomach acid is so bad it would burn through your foot if you had it just outside. But the stomach lining is supposed to be, it really has a shell of mucus around it to protect that inner layer. But if
Mm-hmm.
that acid starts leaking up through the sphincter, because the sphincter has lost its tightness, that is bad. And people have to do things like after a meal not lie down flat, or all that acid will sloosh up through the sphincter. So that's one thing. It's a different issue about the emptying, because the emptying's at the other end, and it depends on muscles being strong. And there's something called gastroparesis, which means that the muscles aren't working to push stuff out, and that can have a lot of different causes. So when people complain about these stomach issues, there's several different possibilities. So the gastroparesis is often an indication of diabetes or of
Wow.
prediabetes, about a third of people, and it's because of high glucose levels. They damage the nerves and muscles, and so that's one of the things that can happen. Another thing is if people have had surgery on or near the stomach, that can affect this layer that's supposed to be so protected, but it's not in those people. And then people can end up getting ulcers. We know an ulcer is like wearing away that stomach lining. So, and then there's a whole lot of medications that can lead to these. They're called um, opioid pain medications, morphine, codeine, oxycodone, Percocet, Tylenol, even. So there's a lot of medications that people take that can affect our stomach lining, and it's also good for those people to avoid nicotine and marijuana. So there's a lot of different causes to this, and not the same for everybody. But what people can do is eat small meals more frequently, and raw and high raw are supposed to be really good, because you'll get a good mix of microbiota, and they provide a lot of healing nutrients. Um, and they might need to eat more like smoothies or blended soups that are raw, and chew each bite well. So that's just, there's certainly a mix of problems. And even though a lot of people might have the complaints that are related to that, they can be
Mm-hmm.
completely different causes, which they're
That's
trying to figure
interesting.
out. Yeah.
Yeah, the gastroparesis, that sounds scary. Like,
I know. And
that's,
it's one of those ones they go, I don't know what that's from, could be this. Could be
yeah.
that.
This
Yeah.
is not the digestive system becoming paralyzed, right? That's something else.
Right. But it is that the muscles aren't quite as doing their job powerfully. Some of it is. Another whole thing is you could have little ulcers in there,
Mm-hmm.
which gives a burning, because you got that really strong stomach acid. Like, it's tough stuff. But we don't normally have problems with it, because we've got this inner lining of the stomach that has, all the cells are particular kind, and they're putting out this thick mucus layer that's protective, and there's no little holes in it. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Those are really great points, especially about the medication and the smoking of the marijuana, because I'm like, yes, I know. I know there's a lot of folks. I'm actually surprised how many people have come to me and mentioned that they've done this and have had digestive issues. But I didn't realize that marijuana could cause digestive issues, especially, well, yeah. I mean, they haven't really quit, but yeah. But that's really good to know. How concerned do we need to be about probiotics? So, like, there's some raw foodies that are using probiotic pills, which to me seems a little extra and unnecessary. What do you think about this?
Okay, well, the real experts in which ones help are, the Japanese, which know that this one does this, and yeah. But in general, we usually wouldn't even need probiotics if we're on raw diets because we've got so much fiber and got a mix of it from all the different plant foods. Like, that's why it's good not to have like 12 bananas for lunch. It's good to have, a salad that's got a bunch of things in it, and we'll get these different. But we usually would have enough of the different foods that feed good gut bacteria. No problem. But if you've just taken antibiotics, you sure need it, because antibiotics is kill bacteria. They're like anti to those little bio microorganisms, and they've wiped out every one they could manage to. And so then you need probiotics. And now they're even suggesting antibiotics or probiotics while you're taking the antibiotics, which seems funny to me, but anyway, that's how it's working right now. So that's one thing. But another thing is that if people are moving off a diet where they, had really different diet and they're going towards raw or high raw, their gut bacteria are not there yet. So then it could be good to include some of those. Now they've got some what I think are rather silly things happening, which is doing fecal transplants. And what they do is take the mix that's in a healthy person, maybe a raw foodist, high raw person, somebody really healthy. They take some of their fecal material and put it into somebody that has really crummy fecal material because they've been eating, fries and steak and stuff, so that's not supporting that good gut bacteria. But of course, after a few weeks, that person's going to be right back where they were because you're not feeding the gut microbiota that you want, and they need that stuff to grow. So a lot of the different things like beans, onions, leeks, garlic, different cabbages, watermelon, the different fruits, they all support really good gut bacteria, so you don't need to worry about it otherwise.
Well, good to know folks could save their money unless they're in transition and, they need support.
Or just did antibiotics.
Or just, yes.
Yeah.
Well, this has been wonderful. I learned so much. And thank you so much for bringing up the fecal transplant part, because it's amazing what we're doing now in science. I mean, when you hear about like the studies they're doing on rats, which these poor rats, they get put through so much. But putting fecal transplant from like a healthy size rat or a obese rat into a healthy size rat, and that healthy size rat becomes obese. I mean, this type of thing is just like, whoa, this bacteria is really doing so much. It is really like operating so much in our body, making us obesity prone and, causing us to have cravings and like, all of this stuff. So it's really quite fascinating.
Well, thank you, Samantha. It's really fun talking with you. We could have gone on forever, huh?
Honestly, yes. And thank y'all for joining us live. I'm going to post in the comments this website, plant-poweredprotein.com. if you could let us know it's what this is about, this link. Oh, these are all your books. Very nice.
Yeah.
I just clicked on the link. These are all your books. Plant powered protein, which I highly recommend. There's a ton of meal plans in there as well. Kick Diabetes Cookbook, The Raw Revolution, which she showed, Becoming Vegan for folks who are still new to even that journey.
Or even really experienced ones, because we really go into the research. Yeah, exactly. How do you get your omega-3s? You know, we use hemp, chia, how much, all that kind of stuff. Yeah.
Yes. And chia seeds, we didn't even get to talk about that, but like,
I'll tell you one sentence about that, okay?
yeah,
Okay.
go ahead.
A neighbor made chia pudding. She made 3 different kinds, so I wolfed it down. Usually I'd have like half a cup, but anyway.
Hmm.
And I was in a walk in the forest. Boy, did I ever have to go to the bathroom. Like I ate too much of it. And I never thought of it before, because in our recipes, we've got one in Kick Diabetes. So we've got a chia pudding um, that's like that.
Yeah.
And it's just got, you're supposed to have half a cup of it. Well, it's got 1.5 tablespoons of chia. Well, I'd had probably 3 times that much. And that just wanted to whoosh through. It was
Mm.
something.
But you
So,
soaked it beforehand in water, right?
well, it's still, you shouldn't have more than 1.5 tablespoons a day if you're kind of,
Mm.
and people vary in their sensitivity. Some people could have more than that. So it was prepared properly, and it was just an uncooked recipe, but still, whoa. So
Yeah,
it
because
made me realize,
I know of folks who had chia and didn't soak them beforehand and ended up constipated from chia seeds.
okay, yeah, yeah,
And also I know for me personally, chia seed have burned my stomach really, really bad. And this is with soaking and everything. Um, so it had me thinking, like, is it of a hydration issue? Was I not fully hydrated? Which I really pay attention to my hydration. But I think it's kind of like one of those things, like you said, about sensitivity. Some of us are just more sensitive to certain foods than
they sure
others.
do vary. Yeah, when I'm working with individuals, I find out a lot about that person's reality. Yeah, and
Hmm. So
about
my
something.
mom is on live with us. She says, that's a large part of my breakfast: chia seeds and flax seeds, great omega sources, very good.
Yeah, yeah.
Very good for bowel movements. And she said she grounds hers before using, which is really, that could be really helpful too.
Grounds for chia
Yeah, that's
and
what it sounds
flax are
like.
good.
Yeah,
They're good.
definitely the flax seeds you
Yeah,
have to ground for optimal absorption, right, Vasanto?
yeah.
On the flax seeds,
You won't absorb them. They'll just slither right on through if they're not ground.
if
The
they're
flax.
not ground.
Yeah.
Yes.
Chia,
Yeah.
I haven't thought of grinding, but here we're considering just not too huge amounts. So I've found hemp really helpful, like using a couple tablespoons to get my omega-3s for the day and put that in a smoothie. That's a real easy one. It doesn't seem to have any problems or side effects.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Brilliant, brilliant. Thank you so much for being with us today. And thank y'all for joining us live. Have a wonderful evening and make sure you eat your omega-3s and get all of Vasanto's books and meal plans and recipe ideas. Thank you, Vasanto.
Thank you. Bye.